This is the Roots and All podcast, and I'm your host, Sarah Wilson. Join me as I talk about all aspects of gardening with some of the top horticulturists from around the world. Hello and welcome to Roots and All. My guest this week is Amy Anthony, a certified clinical aromatherapist and aromatic gardener. In addition to that, Amy is an aromatherapy educator, podcaster, herbalist, certified master composter, and an artisanal distiller, and is one of New York's top aromatherapy practitioners. We talk about the importance of connecting with nature through scent, how aromatherapy can support wellness and vitality, and how you can become an aromatic gardening practitioner yourself.
Modern aromatherapy started in France. In the 1930s, the term was coined, and then it migrated to England. And then in the US, a lot of folks learned the quote British way or English way of aromatherapy. So I am a professional aromatherapist, an educator. I am a passion and avid lifelong gardener. I'm a distiller. I'm a kitchen herbalist. I don't have a shingle hanging out just saying, come see me, I'm an herbalist. But the aromatherapy part, I'm an educator and a practitioner. So when I started my aromatherapy life back, I'd say it's in 2012 was my first workshop, and I was dabbling before that. I'll get into the textbook definition, and then I'd love for you to ask me questions. So technically, aromatherapy is the therapeutic application of genuine and authentic essential oils to work holistically with an individual. So someone might present to me saying, I have a bad case of bronchitis. I'll say, let's see how we can work with essential oils to help. I have arthritic pain. Let's see how I can help. I have anxiety. Help me out with that. Or I need help meditating, or I need to find connection in some way to go into the more spiritual way. So the essential oils, because they are so concentrated, we take a lot of plant material to obtain these tiny bits of oil. They're so concentrated, we work in small amounts. So emotional work, mental work, spiritual work can be 1 drop of oil on a cotton pad. And then when we go into physical manifestations of things, let's say like pain or a respiratory condition, we dilute the oils and apply them topically. So that's kind of a nutshell, but there's a lot of nuance.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I wondered as well, obviously, aromatherapy uses scent. And if I go shopping for a candle, for example, I'm looking for something that uses plant aromatics, and quite often, especially in the UK, I can only find things that are synthetic. So I'm guessing there is a difference, but can you explain what the difference is?
Oh my gosh, yes. It's an important topic you're bringing up, because synthetics, we know they're bad. They're made in a laboratory. People want them because they're repeatable. They have staying power. They're flat. They're not good. Just as a side note, I've made aromatherapy candles. I've taught classes and I've stopped because it's wasteful. The aromatic, genuine, authentic aromatics from plants, a lot of the molecules can't withstand the combustion process of that flame. So it's just useless. Don't even go there. But the way I really want to answer this is, a lot of when you get deep into the oils, into the aromatic plants, you'll have, let's say I have yarrow in my hand, and we could look at a lab report that says that yarrow, I'm making this up, has 200 chemical components in there. And you'll see on a graph, one component might make up 20%. And then and then another at 15 and 10. And you're like, oh, wow. But then there's what we call the trace components that the plant makes. And this is the magic of the oil. This is the synergy. This is the life force in the oil in the plant. And you can have several trace components at 0.001%, 0.02%. And that was made by the plant. It's there for a reason. And that's a lot of this, we'll call it magic, the energy, the vitality that comes through. So let's say I take a synthetic product like a perfume, and you're like, oh, it smells like a pretend floral. It stays around a long time, but it doesn't sing. It's not a symphony like a natural perfume would be that's made of, genuine, authentic essential oils.
Obviously, aromatherapy is very powerful, but I don't know whether people completely understand the link between it and using your own garden, especially in terms of aromatic gardening, which is what you do. I mean, if you're not working with concentrated oils, is it still possible to use the scents from your garden to get therapeutic benefits?
Yes, I mean the molecules are there because this is all a chemical thing we're working with, the chemosensory stuff. And these molecules, you could go to your garden and I have basil on my mind, and many people I know like basil and they smile. And you could just go out to your garden and rub a leaf and smell your fingers, go rub rosemary, let's say, and smell your fingers or brush your hands, and you just smell that and you're getting the chemistry. There's an interaction happening there, and it's powerful. And that is aromatherapy. Some people might say it's not because it's not the concentrated oil, but yeah, it's possible. You don't have to go buy all these oils. You can go outside and make a tea garden, specializing in aromatic plants, let's say, and just have fun.
That's so interesting, actually. You use the example of basil because I've smelt basil essential oil. And for me, I mean, I do have a slightly curious sense of smell, but for me, the basil essential oil doesn't resemble the plant. Do you find that? Is that an uncommon reaction to it?
No, you're right. So, because what's happening is we're taking a lot of basil flowering tops and putting them in a still. Let's say I talk in pounds, sorry, like let's say I take a kilo of basil. I'm only going to get this tiny amount of essential oil. We're only getting specific chemical components that can make it over the steam through the distillation process. So a lot's left behind in the pot holding the botanical biomass. So you're just smelling this really specific chemistry. So honestly, if you're really into basil and you want a more, quote, genuine smell, or more, excuse me, true to life, there's more modern day CO2 extraction, which takes color, takes heavier molecules that won't come over during steam distillation. And you will smell something and you're like, yeah, that's much closer to basil.
Wow, it's so scientific, and I've kind of dabbled. I went on a course to make my own perfume, and it is just so in depth. I mean, it's a life's work, isn't it? I guess getting your head around any of this. But in terms of if you were growing plants in your garden and you wanted some positive benefits, are there any that are really powerful in terms of scent or benefit that you would recommend to people?
That's a great question, and it's nuanced because scent molecules touch us on so many different levels. And one of the most immediate is memory association and liking and disliking something. So if you really like something and it makes you happy and it grows in your area, plant it. That's really it. And there's more on the physiological level and the essential oils, the aromatic plants, their chemistry. They work on our neuroendocrine system. So there's actual evidence that, say, like lavender, genuine lavandula angustifolia, has a sedative effect, and let's say rosemary has this uplifting effect. That's there. Those are great to have for that therapeutic in that sense. But as I just said, if it makes you happy, plant it. Because there's no better medicine than that. If you can go out and smile, like that's that does a lot for you.
I was listening to one of your more recent podcasts earlier today, and you were talking about plants that are specific to your culture and maybe your region. And I thought that was really, really interesting. And is there something to be said for the plants that you may connect with from your particular eco-region? Should you surround yourself with them? Are they more beneficial to you than other plants?
I'd say on several levels, yes, because you're getting to know who grows by you and your ecosystem. And the bigger implication, and something I'm trying to be much more mindful of, is that the sustainability issue. of, if you could work with plants that are near you, there's a symbiosis between, it's like we want to eat local food. And if I've honestly really stepped away from working with oils like eucalyptus, etc., like that's from Australia. I live here. There's like all this supply chain, all this transportation, all this happening to get me that little bottle of oil. So to be really mindful of, rhythms of the garden, rhythms of the environment, what's happening, the plants that are happy there and thrive. It helps me become more integrated with where I'm living instead of living in a fantasy, if that makes sense.
I was wondering as well, do the kind of scents more that you work with apply to the foliage, or are we also talking flowers as well?
It's funny because I'm talking about trying to appreciate native plants, but I do have like a eucalyptus tree growing this year that will die. So the aromatics in our garden are the aromatics that we work with in aromatherapy. And it's twofold. I just have to share this. One of the aromatic gardening things, it started because I didn't want to fight the wildlife around me. We have a lot of deer, a lot of rabbits, a lot of groundhogs, and everyone wants to eat plants, right? Because that's what they do. So when I plant something like gray Santolina or lavender cotton, or, the common names, or lavandin, they stay away from that. So that's really fun and exciting because I don't want to fight them, the animals. And then as a teacher and a practitioner, I grow these. I don't say I don't grow them. I ask them to live there and grow. Because if I'm a teacher and I don't know what these plants look like, or clary sage, what does it look like? How does it like to grow? Like if I don't understand the plant to the best of my ability, how can I be an effective teacher or practitioner? So that's the root of the aromatics in my life there in the garden.
Yeah, and another thing that you said, which it spoke to me, because there's been times when I've thought, I'm going to make soap or I'm going to make some sort of oil. And then you start looking into it and you might have some, for example, calendula petals. And you think, right, well, I'm going to diffuse them in oil. Then you have to buy like a carrier oil and you have to steep them in that. And then you need to buy the other ingredients. And you said actually that aromatherapy isn't a consumptive exercise, and I'm kind of paraphrasing you there. And I wondered if you could explain why you feel like that. And again, apart from maybe planting plants that you can brush past and kind of enjoy the scent of, is there anything else we can do to stop being so consumptive?
To be honest, like I struggle with this because I'm of this world and of this culture, and I try to be mindful of how much crap we have around us and people telling us to buy stuff. And it really goes back to getting outside, finding that aromatic plant that you resonate with, or a non-aromatic, and just being with it, or making a tea. Because honestly, when I started to get into this world of aromatherapy, it's just all these products and buy this. And I'll say at the MLM companies that you buy these oils, keep buying these oils. It's like, okay, let's step back. Does the world need yet another plastic inhaler that's going to go into a landfill? Does the world need another package that you bought with your fizzing bath salts? Does that package need to get, thrown into the garbage? And the best thing we can do, like you're saying, maybe you grow I say calendula or calendula, and making your own stuff and having that connection and knowing it doesn't take a lot to make us happy or change us,
I think there's a kind of mindfulness around harvesting and then taking the time to wait for that plant to kind of release its goodness. That's part of the process, I think, about stepping away from the consumption aspect, maybe.
Yeah, it is. I appreciate how you said the process, because that's what it is, right? It's like you have the seed and the sun and water, and you watch it grow, and you're like, yay, I'm rooting for you, plant. Then you might get to harvest it and enjoy it. And if, it's an annual to go to seed, and then another generation comes, and it's that, like you're saying, that appreciation of time. And I feel so childlike. It makes me so happy. It's like that really simple stuff in life. Like today in New York City, I'm like, the sky is blue. It's not humid. I'm so happy. You know, it's just like, it's really, really fun stuff. And I love weeding because I grew up that way. So I'll just be outside putting around and I'll see a weed and I'll just go pull it, you know. And I don't, it's just joyful for, it's the really small stuff in life.
It is, that's true. And I like the sort of seasonality of it. And I like the way that you've structured your podcast because you actually link the plants to what the moon is doing. And I wondered if you could kind of explain the idea behind that.
So you're talking about my Luna Aroma series. I really appreciate that. So years ago, I've always been interested in lunar living and biodynamic farming, but I always was like tepid and always looking to other people and books and what other people had to say. And I was getting too intellectual about it. So, 2020 happened to the world. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to start observing what's going on around me and try to feel a connection with an essential oil and a botanical that I feel resonates with the current time I'm in New York, in the New York metro area. So someone in, South Africa, what I'm doing on Luna Aroma might not resonate with them. But it really was giving myself permission just to like sit and pause and look out the window in the wintertime and meditate and think like, what's happening? What are the themes? And it was this year and a half project I worked on starting in 2020. And I thought it would become a book. And I was like, no, I really thought it belonged in the podcast format. But it is just this way to look and observe at the lunar themes and get away from the clock and live closer to the environment in a way.
Well, I think it's really good if you are in an urban environment because without sounding too cliche, it's sometimes difficult to observe the seasonal changes and monthly changes and daily changes if you can't see the wider landscape. You may get snippets of it in the leaves on the trees and things, but the moon is kind of above everyone. It's a constant. So I think it's a really, really good way of keying into what nature's doing. I think it works brilliantly. And I was thinking as well about the different plants that you might use and the different oils. And like you said, some people will have a visceral reaction to a smell. For some people, they'll really love it. For me, sweet peas, I love them. I can't get enough of them. But, if it was something else, maybe I might sniff it and go, oh, like daffodils for me, sometimes they've got that fecal note. I don't love it. Are there any plants or aromatic oils that you would say, actually, they're not good for you, or is it totally individual?
Oh, yeah, it's totally individual. I mean, there's safety concerns for things, specifically with the oils. So you'll have like fennel is high in transanethol, which is, I have to watch my language. It works with estrogen. So if I have estrogen dependent issues, I might stay away from that. But like fennel tea is shown to increase breast milk production. I love smelling camphor, like, the camphor tree and the oil, but camphor can be toxic to the liver, the oil, if I'm working with it every day. But it's really about these nuanced safety concerns. But to answer your question, it really is an individual thing. And this comes as a practitioner. If someone comes to me and they're like, Amy, I can't sleep, can you help me? And we'll talk about their whole life. I'll present, maybe 10 oils to them and say, all right, sniff these. And if you're interested or love it, keep it. If you don't like it, push it away and I'll put the cap on. So it's really individual. The aromatherapist is here as the guide because I'm the one that has the safety information and how to blend and all that stuff. But you have to keep the individual's whole perspective in mind, including their likes and dislikes.
Yeah, if I smell sandalwood, I'm just appalled. I can't cope with it at all. So it's so funny where that reaction comes from, but I think you should trust your gut with that. Also, that makes me think of allergens as well. If you, for example, had an allergy or hay fever or something, or even a common cold, and you can't sniff, are you still going to benefit from aromatherapy? Is it still going to get through to you on a kind of level that maybe you don't immediately know or understand?
Yeah, this is the cool thing about aromatherapy. So you'll have it's all about the molecule, right? So when you're smelling it, you're going into cortical tissue through scent recognition, memory retention, memory formation, memory recall. But like earlier, I was saying there's a physiological level. So these molecules, some of them are so small. Essential oils, they have to be 20 carbons or less. They're very volatile and light as a class. And then they can penetrate the blood-brain barrier, some of the components. When you're inhaling it, it's of course going into your bloodstream, and we have receptors all over our body. We do know that essential oil components influence like GABA receptors, serotonin receptors. They're actually working in the body, and the body has to metabolize these and excrete them. The liver will process these. So like I said, like lavender for most people in the proper dosage, less is more, should likely help calm you down and start to sedate the nervous system. Peppermint generally will have like an excitable effect. So it's really interesting. Like it's about the scent, and it's because those molecules are so light, volatile, mobile, and they're lipid loving. That's why they're called essential oils. They're not oily, but they love lipids, and our skin is made of lipids. Our membranes, our cells are lipid based. So there's this real affinity for these molecules to assist us. I'll use that word.
Thinking about specifically the UK, we are in the dog days of summer. I think a lot of people are sniffing autumn in the air here. It's come early, but it's definitely coming. Are there any aromatic oils that you would turn to at this time to kind of, I suppose, keep in step with that slowing of the seasons, or maybe that change in temperature, the loss of the light? Is there anything that you would recommend at this time?
Two that come to mind, native to here is goldenrod, Solidago canadensis, and I know it's made its way across the world in the aster family. Any asters would be lovely to spend time with. There's only one aromatic. But for whatever reason, September rolls around and I want to go to vetiver. And I know I'm going to the oils, not the garden, so I apologize. Outside, I go to goldenrod, and that is so chamomile-like. It's in the same family. It's just chills you out. It's kind of like lazy, hazy, chill. And vetiver has a smokiness if you wanted to go work with the oil that just it's inviting and reminds me of like campfires and cooler weather. And I know I'm kind of going off of my little daydream here, but for me in the United States, it's time for the asters. And like I said, the goldenrod is really one that I look forward to spending time with. But for folks, I'm getting out of the garden here. A lot of the tree oil, so the like juniper wood, you don't like sandalwood so much, but like the woody stuff, I feel really starts to resonate with the fall.
And as I said, it is such a huge, huge topic. And I think people who are interested in it sometimes, like myself, don't actually know where to start. But if you did want to find out more, and I know your website has got resources on it, but where can people go to learn more and to get involved in it?
The International Federation of Professional Aromatherapists is a great website to go to for information, safety standards. Find an aromatherapist. That's a really great resource. Also, to give a shout out, I am the current New York State representative here in the United States for the Alliance of International Aromatherapists. It's a kind of youngish organization, but you could look on there for resources. Another US focused one is the National Association for Holistic Aromatherapy. Great resource. It's more consumer facing for like, what is an oil? You could find a local aromatherapist there. For our Canadian friends, the CFA is out there. So those are four good, but the IFPA is definitely one of the older aromatherapy organizations. It's really well respected. So I would nudge people to go there. Of course, check my website out. I have a lot of like videos and articles and stuff, but really, shout out to the IFPA, because they just don't take anyone as a member too. You really have to prove your credentials, as you do with the other website organizations I mentioned, but the IFPA is, I'd say, gold standard.
Thank you to Amy for shedding light on this fascinating art, and thank you to you as well for listening. This week's shout out for a good person doing good work goes to my friend Frankie, who is a gentle gardener, a talented yoga practitioner, and one of life's old souls, who is simply one of the best people I've ever met. Follow her work on Instagram at Slow Yoga Francesca. Next up is Dr. Ian Bedford, with the lowdown on one of what must surely be the prettiest, if not the most beneficial bugs to grace our gardens.
Appearing in many gardens across the UK is an invasive yet very attractive ladybird-sized beetle called the Rosemary leaf beetle. The adults are coloured with beautiful metallic green and purple stripes, whilst their grub-like larvae are dull white with dark grey stripes along their sides. As their name suggests, their primary host plant is rosemary, but they can also be found on other plants that produce high levels of camphor, such as lavender, sage and thyme. The rosemary leaf beetle first appeared in the UK in the mid-90s and soon became established within central London before spreading out across the UK, where they can now be found feeding on their host plants throughout the year, only leaving to hide underground during the coldest of days. Some people might actually enjoy seeing the rosemary leaf beetles in their gardens and admire the beauty of these living jewelled adornments on their plants. However, they can become a serious pest for commercial lavender and herb growers, where heavy infestations can soon develop if left untreated, causing damage to the plant's growing points and ultimately leading to dieback. In a home garden, though, an infestation can be kept under control or eradicated relatively simply and doesn't need to involve spraying pesticides that will also kill the many beneficial insects that visit the flowers of these aromatic host plants. Simply by laying an old sheet around the base of an infested plant, then vigorously shaking the shoots and branches, the beetles and their grubs will tumble out on top of the sheet, where they can be collected by hand and safely removed.
You can download or listen to the podcast direct from the website rootsandall.co.uk. Please also check out my Patreon, where you can make a one-off donation or take out a monthly subscription to help support the podcast. Because if you enjoy the show, please help it continue. I also have a GoFundMe where you can make a one-off donation. Even a one-off donation of £1 helps, and I'll be really grateful for your support. So please go to Patreon or GoFundMe and search for Roots and All Podcast.